It was interesting last week. I must have found it. I must have found the webinar very hard um, because we had very few questions on this one over here on data professionals, um, and and then Paul started asking questions towards the end, and there was all sorts of discussions that came about, which was very helpful. Um, I was a little bit despondent. I'm not sure whether I gave you too much information or too little information, or it's too complex. But shortly afterwards, it was interesting to see someone from one of our customers, one of our financial services. She said this is something they've been battling with in the last month or two, and they're really trying to find a way through in terms of customer value proposition. How does this work? So please, any of you that are, if this is also appropriate to you or linked to you, please give us a shout. I think it's so critical to understand your customer, understand the value that you deliver, and certainly those marketing exercises that they use in terms of customer lifetime value, customer lifespan, all of those things almost indicate how well and how strong your relationship is with a customer. And whether that customer is an internal stakeholder or an external customer and stakeholder, I think you can apply the analysis, you can apply the principles to anything you do. And if data products are something that you want to focus on, I promise you, the marketing people have been working with business products for years now, and they can teach us not just a thing or two, but many things. So I've been really excited by how I can make use of marketing analytics to help me deliver data products. Um, So, uh, hopefully today we can have a few more discussions. Hopefully there'll be more engagement. Um, so let's see. So today it's on our data manager, and the data manager is responsible for managing data teams that deliver data products, managing data practices, for example, the data quality practice or the data governance practice or the BI. And typically what happens is those data teams come from resources defined in the data practice, and I'm going to show you some of that. And then we have the data office or the data management office. In Saudi, they call it the DMO. It's regulated within the NDMO regulations that they have to establish one, and they have to have a CDO. So they are working really hard to set these practices up in the different domains. But what is important is how do we bring everything together? How do we orchestrate all of these different practices, all these different compliance regulations so that we can achieve and deliver data products successfully? Okay, so that's the important thing today is data managers. How do you manage this? And then as well is how do you ensure alignment? And there's two types of alignment. There's the first alignment, which is by data initiative or by project. And then there's what I call BAU or business as usual. So who's developing terminology, business terminology in the background, developing the glossary, uh, looking after the data, populating the data catalog. Those things are everything that is going on in the background, and it needs to happen every day. Basically, every day somebody's working on it and somebody's doing it. So there's no special project that's set up. It's just that's what's expected of the data stewards within the different business units. Okay, and then it's about building that appropriate culture in your practice. So different practices, they do have different cultures, they have different makeups. But what's the one that's going to deliver value to the organization? And do you know what the value is? Um, I'm sure I've shared this with you. I've been challenged on a couple of occasions by high-level executives as to what value am I doing, what am I bringing to them. Uh, in some cases, my answer was rather embarrassing, and I still to this day am embarrassed about how I responded. And a lot of it I attribute to the fact that I never paid attention to the value that we should be delivering. And maybe it's because we never really thought about and spoke about data products until recently. Um, so how do we ensure that's working? And then how do we incorporate the business value proposition that's defined at a business architecture level and the marketing value proposition that the marketing people define? So how do I make use of what other people are doing and how much they've defined to bring it back to us, to bring it back to the data management scenario? Okay. Are there any questions? Are there any comments about achieving value, about using data products, anything that anyone would like to clarify up front before we go too far? You can certainly see in the last couple of weeks, I dealt with what's a value proposition, how do you design a value proposition, how do you test and experiment that you've got the right value proposition, and then how do you build value propositions for data management capabilities. So yes, Andrew, you'll actually see in the next couple of slides where I tackle this. It's more than a data lead, but you're going in the right direction. Okay, so I'll get to your answer soon. Okay, great. So let's go into the data management manager. The data, there's too many words, too many management words there, but let's focus on the data manager. Okay, and basically by practice or by what you're doing, you have one job. You basically got one job, and you need to do that better than anybody else. Okay. And that in doing your job successfully, you bring about a level of trust, you bring about a level of credibility that enables all of your team members to benefit. Okay. There's nothing worse than working on a death march project or a death march data governance program where people just don't buy into it, they don't enjoy it, they're not seeing any value. So for those people that are almost slogging at the coal face, that's not nice when people are telling you they don't like having you around, they don't like what you do, they don't enjoy the control that you're trying to enforce and things like that. It's not a pleasant environment, and that certainly doesn't keep you engaged and wanting you to deliver at your best. And so it's a hard place to be in. Okay, so I'm just going to go back. I don't think I've shown you this, but this is something um, I have integrated in terms of integrating our customer journey that we have for data professionals alongside the SFIA. Okay, so SFIA stands for the Skills Framework of the Information Age. These are the different levels. Okay, and this is where I position our personas, our data professional personas along this journey. Okay, so we talk about the customer or the data professional journey, and here it starts. It starts from zero to data citizen, from data citizen to data professional, professional to specialist to thought leader, and that's basically um, that's the journeys that we have. Each person walks a different journey. Uh, and today we're going to be focusing on these areas over here of team lead and manager. Okay. So those are the people that are looking after people and tackling projects and programs. They are the ones that are responsible for successful delivery. Okay. And then, of course, you've got the executive, and we will be dealing with the executive next week in terms of their role. So, of course, they part of strategic leadership. and the team lead and the data manager or the data practice manager is responsible for people management and practice management. So you can see what we're saying here is certain specialists or professionals will opt to go towards the management route rather than the thought leadership route. So there's these decisions that you would make in your career as to whether I'd like to become a thought leader, to compete on an international stage, to be able to influence people about how to do things in data management appropriately. Some people don't enjoy that. And they would prefer to be active in terms of the managerial role and head towards the data executive. And you'll typically find the thought leader is probably nothing that they enjoy about the politics of people management, team management, leadership, and they tend to avoid that. And they go, so that's part of the reason for going along these different paths. But hopefully you notice here is that the thought leader and the executive are responsible for setting strategy, inspiring the organization and the people, and then mobilizing the people. So, and of course they need the team leads and the data managers to help them do that. Okay. So that's a nice mapping, and what I did want to share, and I don't have it here, is that SFIA deals with more than just your knowledge about doing data management. It also deals with those generic attributes of being able to work on your own, to be able to work on the team, to be able to communicate with business. So there's a lot of generic attributes that I haven't listed here, but apply here, and they come together in the SFIA framework. All right. Are there any questions along this journey, or I don't know where a few of you find yourself? I've certainly noticed a few like Jürgen that I believe operates quite a bit in terms of thought leader. Jürgen, I'm not sure if you're there. I saw him just now. Um, and then we have some people that operate a lot as data managers. So are there any questions there? I think Andrew is good at data management. No questions.
So Howard, just
yes,
a quick
Paul.
one. So
Yeah.
just being maybe pedantic on the brackets, just the thought leader.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still that thought leader. I shouldn't say he or she is still included. So everybody, that's a South Africanism. Hey guys, is a generic term for everyone. But the thought leader, that's obviously they are positioned within teams, right? So therefore,
yes,
the team lead / manager still looks after that person. It's not outside.
Yes.
As a lone ranger.
Correct. What I'm trying to express here on the P2L journey, Paul, is how do we take professionals and specialists that have been operating this and that don't want to go to thought leader, but would prefer to go to team lead, practice manager, and stuff like that. So this is more of the professional journey and how they operate in practice with data initiatives and things like that.
Got you. Okay, cool.
But good question. And that was sort of what I was trying to say is a lot of the times you find those thought leaders that want to be the best at data quality. And they typically become the best within their company or within their team. And then they become the best in the company. And then they become the best in a region or DAMA South Africa. And then they're international. And there's a journey for those people. But they are very inspired and encouraged by the specialities and the thought going into a data practice.
Okay, got you. Got you. Cool.
Fantastic.
So sorry, just to add, some of the work that I've done, as you know, with the DMMA work, just positioning who to invite into the assessment workshop plan, all that. It's a great mapping to use because you want to ensure, just from our discussion the other night, You want to ensure that the thought leader / specialist is there to bring the standards for particular deliverables and all that into the picture, right?
Correct. 100%. So your thought leader is about setting strategy around, or what I sometimes refer to as an implementation framework. What is the best way to deliver data quality?
Yes.
Is it PDCA? Is it ISO 8061? Is it TLADS, think like a data scientist, AI frameworks, data value realization frameworks? Those things require lots of understanding and experience and constant checking and upgrading your skills to what's going on in the market. Like we spoke about conceptual modeling. So if you have a data modeler or a data architect, a lot of the times those people are translating into data ontologists. There's new direction for them.
Yes.
And how do they bring that back into their organization? Okay.
Yes.
So how do we do data modeling in the world of AI? Okay.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
That's the important thing. Okay.
That's cool.
Great. So everybody needs a path. Everybody needs a journey, and it's taking you from, let's say you've just been appointed as a data steward. How do we take you from a person, a business person, an SME that's just been given the title of data steward? How do we create you or train you to be a data citizen? So that would be, an example of that would be teaching you how to provide the appropriate inputs to any data artifact that requires your involvement. For example, a entity definition in data modeling. You would need to be the person that defines the business glossary or the business terminology, or writing a business definition. So this one is very practical. These ones get both practical and theoretical, and thought leader pushes the boundaries in all sorts of different areas, from academic research to how do we apply those techniques to local and new ways of doing things. Why am I battling with all these different areas? How do we bring them in? Okay. But yeah, good question. Thanks for. Okay, great. So let's move on to the next step. The next step is just to say this is where we're focusing on managers. So supervisors, team leads, first line management, senior management, and I'm differentiating them from strategic leadership. Okay. And they probably fit more in what we refer to as operational leadership. Personal leadership is you yourself. You have to take care. Professionals, specialists, thought leaders, entry. You need how to lead yourself personally, and that's what we refer to as the generic attributes of any professional. They need to have that. Okay, there's a level of maturity. Can you lead on your own? That COVID started testing a lot of those things. Can you lead yourself, or do you need people to lead you? And that goes along here. So here is what we refer to the data management value proposition. And I just wanted to show you almost the types of data managers that we get. We get a data team lead. Andrew, I wanted to just check with you. Is that the question you asked? A data lead, that would be someone in charge of a sprint.
Yes. So I head up the data migration team. They call me the data lead. I used to head up the data quality, doing the data profiling and cleansing project, and they used to call me data lead. So I just really wanted to hone in. So
what I differentiate, and I refer to your terminology as a data practice manager compared to a data team leader that's leading teams that deliver data initiatives. Okay. So, and I'm going to show you why I've made that differentiation a little bit later. But if you look at sprint teams or domain-driven development, what you're doing is you're getting a multidisciplinary team that is responsible for delivering data products, Andrew. And we call them data team leads.
Got it.
Okay. So I needed to differentiate that between a data practice manager and also a thought leader. Now, you'll find that some people refer to themselves as a data lead. because they are the ones that are defining the way in which we do things. Not how we do things, but the way in which we do it. So they bring the thought leadership to the table. Does that also make sense, Andrew?
Yes, yes, it does. Yeah. So I think I was sort of going off, but I almost thought of as somebody who's writing the data, let's say data migration approaches and strategy documents.
Now that's where you'd have, as Andrew, you'd probably have a thought leader within your practice that is helping you set that strategy. Remember, we spoke over here, that strategy. What is the data quality strategy? What is the data engineering, the data migration,
Yes.
knowledge management, the AI thing. So it's that area over here that goes in there. So can you see how nicely the SFIA helps you position these people?
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Okay, great. Thanks, Andrew.
Sure.
Okay, fantastic. So here we have the different managers, and you'll see when I give you a definition as to why I've got these hierarchies. And basically, they all have one jobs to be done, and that's a data professional resource manager. Okay, so a data team lead will have data professionals from the different areas coming together, and they're there to ensure that these people work together to deliver a data product. A data practice manager would then make sure that they have enough professional resources, and I'm also including technology here. They have enough resources that they can do the best data quality job that's required, or data governance, or whatever it is. And so they have the skilled professionals, and they have sufficient capacity and pipeline to be able to deal with as many data initiatives as the business requires to help them deliver a data strategy. And I'm going to show you some examples of that later on, but I'm hoping you can pick up the fact that we have these sprint teams, maybe in different domains. They're all there to deliver data products, whichever form it is. And then you will engage a set of professionals to deliver a data product. And if you remember the chat with Gary Ellerman, a data product is curated, it's modeled, it's got all the terminology defined there. So it's not just one set of resources that will do the job. It's not just a data engineer. It's more than that. It's around all those different practices as well. Okay, so they have their one job. Now, what's important about that one job is making sure that we understand that value proposition. So team leader has to lead a data team. Practice manager leads the data practice, and the data office manager will lead the data office and ensure that we get the appropriate ROI for those different things. So that's just before that, that is the job that you have or the role that you have. And then this is your value proposition. And you need to define that value proposition to ensure that you are achieving what the organization expects of you to do. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to present here is a template of the value proposition. You would certainly apply this template to your own organization, to your own business objectives, and make sure that you set up appropriately. But there's lots of work to establish this. Andrew, I'm sure you can bear testimony to the amount of effort it takes to, first of all, build a business case. Data migration, you probably got in that because there were lots of movement from localized data platforms to cloud data platforms, and now all of a sudden there's lots of development. You need to build a business case, you need to build a strategy, you need to have an implementation framework, practices, policies, procedures. There's a bucket full of work that needs to be done. Yeah, Debbie, yes.
Yeah, thank you. I just have a question of is a data owner a data manager?
That's a great question. And maybe I'm going to ask the and it will help you when we get to the definitions as to show whether it's there. But that's a good question, and maybe I can ask that of, if a data owner is responsible, he's the business person with authority of the people that are managing a data domain, what is the difference between that person and a data practice manager or a data team leader? They almost, if truth be told, they're the people that look after the business as usual part of the data management. So they are the business person, the business owner that's in charge of a domain. Paul, I wonder if you have any views on that.
Sure. I think I would say that the data owner is more of a subject matter expert than managing a team of people with the different domains included in a team. Like, for instance, the data team lead as a data manager would lead this team of resources to deliver a use case. You would need a modeler, a quality person, on and on and on, or an engineer, all of that. Data owner is responsible for the data object, right? So that responsible for, in a finance context, cost center or GL accounts, or
Right.
they are
So
experts in that domain. They're not managing a team of people that's engineering and modeling and all that. Although I know
yeah,
you've,
but
I know you
where the interesting
suggested
thing
that
comes,
yeah,
Paul, but the interesting thing comes in there that they are managing the data stewards that are looking after the data products. Okay.
yes, you're right.
So,
Yes,
so that's where you almost think of, wow, that business as usual activity of making sure that the quality on the data product is there all the time, that it's got all the terms defined. So once you jump out of project mode and into business as usual mode, you sort of now in the land of the data owner, and he's having to ensure that his data stewards are doing the work appropriately. Paul, does that help a little bit?
yeah. It goes back to that that definition of data stewards. The job
Yes.
description can be formal or informal.
Yes.
So must be careful not to just separate it, as you just said. Yeah.
That's a good, Jürgen, yes.
Yeah, I just want to weigh in there, guys. I think one role is more business focused and one is more technical focused.
Yes.
The owner and the business steward, they really concentrate on curating for business purposes, while the data manager curates, in terms of the technical, the integration and the quality, driving those metadata standards out and those type of things. So that's how I would pitch them.
Okay. Now, when we build a data product approach, where our data initiatives are delivering data products, which are business data products, those team leads are there. The team is brought together to deliver a data product. So they're the ones who almost establish the data product, okay, the business data product, and then it gets handed over to the data owner. So almost the owner or the main person or the use case owner would probably be a data owner, Jürgen.
Yeah, so we also grappling the same thing at the bank. We're thinking of product owners because the data owner is at one level. And
Right.
then when you assimilate all of the data and you put in transformation, then you add insight, you add context, you build a view, that becomes a product. And that person who will own that product because they understand the transformations and the context that it's used for as well. So we're also leaning towards product owners as another dimension.
Right. So one would ask the question is because they need to have the resources and frameworks and activities to make sure that data product doesn't go bad. It keeps on delivering the value to the consumer or the customer. So they're also involved in maintaining the ongoing quality and trustworthiness of the data product. Great. Thanks very much for that. All right, now moving on. This is a definition, I use the Mark Atkins writing business definition approach of a data manager is a resource manager. Okay, so it can be both people and application / technology that are appropriate for their practice. Okay, so it's not just the technical technologies there. It's part of that, and it's appropriate to that data manager. Why do we need this person? Well, their function is to ensure that we get value back from all of the people, the processes, the technology. We're getting value back on those set of people. Now, who is it? Examples: a data professional, data manager, data executive, data product stakeholder. These are all the people that will determine and value what that resource manager is doing for them. Okay. So what does a data manager do? They're predominantly there to ensure data product delivery. And one would say it's more than just delivery, but it's almost that life cycle. So maybe the better term there is ensure data product life cycle management, or manage the data product life cycle. Okay. And then also to define how to deliver it, and then how to maintain it. Okay, and P3T is my acronym for principles, policies, and procedures, and technology. So it's those things that one has to bear in mind. Okay, when do these data managers come in? It's almost by data product, by initiative. Where is it happening? It happens at an organization level. It happens at a data office level, a data practice, or a data team. That's where it's taking place. And how do they do it? Well, they do it under the framework, an implementation framework. And I do need a definition for an implementation framework, but my definition is it's a process or a way in which you ensure the successful execution of activities required to build a data product. Okay, so let me try to give you an example. PDCA is one of the few implementation frameworks that the DMBOK talks about. Okay, and it's there, and we talk a lot about it's a continuous cycle. It happens over and over again. Now, we need to apply that way of doing things to reference and master data, to data governance. What is the data governance implementation framework? It's not just, oh, I've got 20 processes to do, and let me do all the processes. How are we going to do it and ensure that we are successful? Okay. Then I have a definition of a data practice manager. Okay. So it is that data practice manager is a data management. They lead the practices, and they have to ensure that the data practice shows value. And there's a simple equation there. Okay. The business case must demonstrate that the value derived from the practice is greater than or equal to the cost of the practice. Now, data quality is relatively easy. We know that everything we do from a quality point of view, quality costs. So if you don't have the right level of quality, then it's costing your organization. And everything you do must be about improving the quality or reducing the cost. Okay. So in a way, data quality is quite nice and quite easy to talk about, because I know, and I should be doing, when I see a data quality issue, I should be doing a quality impact assessment, understand the cost to it, and then look at how am I going to fix it, and what new level of quality am I going to get, and I get an improvement. But the other practices are a little bit harder to define. So as an example, how would we define the value derived from metadata? How would we define the value derived from building a controlled vocabulary? Or even how do we define the value of a business glossary? How do we make sure that whatever we do has a value definition? And I'm hoping you can see here that if we don't have a value definition, then we can get into trouble with when we are challenged to explain why we add value to the organization, we are going to battle. How many of you have been involved in a data warehouse project and it sometimes doesn't deliver, it takes too long, and people start questioning the value that you deliver? Anybody been involved in that? I've had a few people come to me to say, Howard, how do we convince the business that we're doing the right thing? Yes, Paul. Sorry, Paul, you had your hand up. Are you okay? All right.
Oh, sorry, carry on.
Are you okay? All right. So I had an example of someone that just introduced Data Vault into an organization. Now, these people were I'm not sure what the right term to use is, but they were dedicated, dyed-in-the-wool, dimensional Kimball people. Okay, they love Kimball. And then it came about to say, Chuck, this Kimball thing is getting out of control. And so let's try to apply Data Vault techniques to it. And of course, they brought Data Vault consultants in and contractors in. These people did a great job as far as they were concerned. And then all of a sudden, there were questions saying, well, and certainly it came from the Kimball camp to say they can't see the value of this. What has it improved from what they were doing? So this person came to me and said, Howard, we know that you did a maturity assessment and you ranked the data warehousing as very low. We brought about Data Vault to help with that maturity assessment, but now people are asking us questions. And I said, that's interesting. I understand and I remember the maturity assessment, but what I wasn't aware of is when you were tasked to build this Data Vault, did you ever ask the business people what their pains were and what value you needed to create? So what are the pains of that? What are the gains? And so that when you were asked at the end of that delivery, when you were asked, did you deliver value, you could then measure it against any of those metrics or anything that was defined. And then you'd be able to say, yes, I have delivered, or no, I didn't deliver, and this is why we didn't deliver. But at least you've sort of got a reason as to why you understand why you didn't deliver. But I found these two parties that were there and they were constantly arguing with each other to say, look at this, look at the benefit we get out of using Data Vault modeling. And they went into all of these justifications and cost analysis, and the Kimball guy said, I still don't see the value. You're doing all this extra work, and there we have the dimensional mart at the end of the day. So maybe just to pause there and ask anybody, is that a situation you've been involved in? And have you ever tried to justify the value that a technology will bring to the organization? It's probably one of the hardest engagements or hardest tricks that you have to get over. Has anyone had that experience? Paul, maybe you went through a challenge where you established a reporting practice, and then they started asking all sorts of questions, and they started even looking at retrenching some of your team. Was that an experience that you had?
Yes, Howard. And yeah, as I've mentioned a few times initially on the webinars, how much I've learned from these webinars and the DMBOK. I didn't have the foundation to actually debate it or argue with them, but I've experienced it where we implemented, for instance, I just got more operational to try and solve problems, but I battled to share the value of those fixes in a document and content management system that it was employed, was bought, decided, implemented, and nobody used it. And yes, I used some sort of like dumb luck or just hard work and grit to fix a problem, to make it operational and get people using it, which changed people's lives a lot, in a big way. But I couldn't articulate it in numbers. I didn't know how to do that. So it is tough. And then I mean, I could get practical things like saving on paper and printing machines and ink and the delivery bike that was delivering thousands of invoices every month to customers. So those were like easy returns that I could share, but the actual workflow and the saving of time and that was a bit tougher. That was the one thing. And then, as you know, the big retrenchment, taking a team of 15 data analysts and a data team of 15 and reducing it down to 3. Even asking how did you get this? There was no answer. So difficult, a very difficult subject, but
and quite emotional. Jürgen, yes,
no, big time.
Your hands up.
Yeah, I think the key is always to tie and link it to a business process. Business understands business processes. They measure it and they can see the value of it. And so if you want to win, most wins are gained by actually influencing a business process. People don't understand what's master data management. They don't understand what metadata management or a glossary. But when you say their business process and you say, this is how I've improved it by putting these things in, then they get it and then they support and push you forward.
Right. And Jürgen, what we do, because the issue you're referring to here, when we bring in what's called a value taxonomy, in terms of how do we speak about value, a lot of what you're mentioning now is what's referred to as cost reduction. Now, whenever you when you do a data initiative, it should be rated in terms of a value taxonomy. There's something from Deloitte called an EVM, Enterprise Value Map, and it's anything from risk mitigation to cost reduction to revenue generation in terms of creating a data product that can be sold, and you can have volume pricing and things like that. So there's lots of different nuances, and you need quite a well-defined value taxonomy. And every single time you bring in a data initiative, there should be some commercial feasibility study there to ensure that you are delivering value. Okay, and that's what we recommend, that data practice managers know that, and they can understand how to recognize what the commercial feasibility is, and to be able to talk to it when it's mandated. So one of the things you need to be able to do is to keep a record of this thing, because when the time comes and people say, what value are you delivering? If you blow bubbles at that point in time, you're typically in trouble, and possibly your people getting retrenched is a side effect, or the project being cancelled in that situation, or restarted. Even that, and all the work that you've done is a bit of a disaster. So why are we doing this work? What's the commercial benefit, and what is the technical feasibility? And you are right, Jürgen, lots of the times it's about improving the quality of the deliverables of a business process, or the efficiencies, or being able to make use of data products that come out of that for customer benefit and revenue. Is that sort of what you were talking about, Jürgen?
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to add to that, Howard, is that sometimes we have to speak and have conversations that resonate with the business. For example, a bank, maybe not a bank, but a business may be chasing innovation. Take Discovery, for example. They need to chase innovation. So for them, key topics is how you enable that innovation. Correct. At the bank, for example, we are very risk averse. Our conversation revolve around mitigating risk. So have to pitch and drive the value that resonates with the organization.
Correct. And what you'll find, Jürgen, is that a lot of it's also dependent on the industry that you're in. So as an example, a highly regulated industry will, when you talk risk management, they love it. And I've been blown away by working on the EDM Council on a data risk working group in terms of how to quantify the data risk. It's amazing what sort of calculations they're doing around that data risk. But it's everything around the radar and the risk products and things like that. That is an interesting game. But when you get into other areas that have to be very innovative, like the Spotify and things like that, then you're talking a different game, and it's about agility and value propositions to the customers, and that's where it's important to know the language that rings true to the business people that you're engaging with. But a very helpful comment.
And just to complete that thought process there, you mentioned agility. Sometimes as a data champion, you're going to have to, if you're chasing innovation, you have to relax some of your controls in terms of getting to that stage. You want to empower them with enough to go forward, but not straddle them to hold them back. So it's another dynamic.
Yeah, that's, we often talk about data lakes and partitioning our data lakes in terms of salty water and fresh water. The fresh water has been well curated, well defined, and well managed. But you still need to provide them with a salty water environment where they can investigate and they can look for changes, look for understanding. And then you've got very low curation, and that's an important area for people to work in, to understand exactly what it's coming in as and what it looks like. So you have to be very careful on where you enforce all of these controls, and then you just do damage rather than enabling them to change the way in which they do things, or find different ways of doing it. Okay, but it's all about handling it in the appropriate way. Okay, so this is what I define as the data practice manager value proposition. And you can see here, these are the set of jobs to be done that a practice manager needs to do. First of all, they need to lead the data management practice. They need to have implementation framework establishment. They need to provide qualified practice resources to data teams. Okay, they need to ensure consistent performance on the migration. Every single time you migrate the data, you're going to get it done on time, in budget, and with the right level of quality. Okay, delivery assurance. Make sure that you don't deliver something that's going to break. Stakeholder delight at a social level. How do you get them to, how do you delight the stakeholder that you're delivering the right stuff and over their expectations? And then practice credibility. You want the people to talk highly of your practice. Data quality, they're doing a good job, or BI or AI, whatever it is, they're doing a good job, and we really appreciate them. It's that level of benefit that you want to get at a social level. Okay. And as you go higher up, your social level doesn't only deal with internal stakeholders, but it starts to deal with external stakeholders. So these are the jobs to be done. This is part of your product definition. What value do you deliver? And you can break them down into functional, emotional, and social. What are the pains that we're experiencing? How do we relieve their pain? What gains do they get if they do the job successfully? Okay, so if we look at this, if we deliver, let's just go back to data management practice implementation framework. The gain is that we will execute the processes successfully. That's what a practice is all about. Can you guarantee that I'm going to have a successful execution, irrespective of the complexity of the master data domain or the data product analytics? Can you do it successfully and correctly on time? And then you would measure it by using a DMMA roadmap. Okay, so there's the gain that I get if I deliver correctly. How do I ensure that I'm creating the gain? And then how do I measure the gain? How do we measure everything we do? And that's called the value proposition. Okay, so can you see how we take everybody's job, we break it up, what needs to be done from a pure knowledge point of view? What are the emotional challenges that people are facing with them and by them, and then getting to a social level? So if I don't do something, if I don't deal with the business pain and issues like that, socially the consequence of that is that they don't trust that you can help them, and they will look for other people to come and do the job for them. Okay. So can you see how we're making use of the marketing approach to value proposition and applying the same thing, but now to our data practices? Okay. And so there's one for a data practice manager. And then what you need to be able to do is, how do I determine ROI? So how do I measure and how do I ensure that business see the ROI that I'm getting? And if I'm not getting it, good for me, I can see where I'm failing and where I can improve. So these are my set of measures that roll up into practice value ROI. So all of these roll up, and you can see I've got functional roll up, I've got emotional roll up, and I've got social roll up. So am I getting the practice reputation socially in my organization? Okay. Are we seeing overall practice effectiveness, and we're not worried that we're going to fail? Every single time we do something, are we going to have comebacks? Are people going to be unhappy with what we delivered? And then we have the value. And these are just the ways in which we measure it. Okay. All right. So what I wanted to just share with you is a way of the data team lead. Remember, Andrew, I spoke about that in terms of delivering a data product. So how do we ensure that we're delivering value to the business? Everything we do has a commercial feasibility study and a technical feasibility study. We understand every single use case, what value is it going to deliver. We then go and execute on that. And then on the way back, we check, well, did you deliver the value? You promised me that, but I only got this, or I got half of what you suggested. Okay, so there's an approach to synchronizing all of the different practices. So can you see here, this was done for Saudi. I've got 15 data practices, all individually, but we have to be able to bring them together to work together. So DQ has to work with data sharing, has to work with reference and master data, data architect and modeling, metadata, document and content, and then advanced analytics. Yes, Jürgen.
I wanted to add there, Howard, was that we talk about the ROI. Unfortunately, the ROI sits in business using the products that is developed. So developing the product and pushing it out there, like the gentleman said earlier, we bought the system, but nobody used it. So we are doing work, but nobody's consuming it. So there is a change management leg to this. There's a change leg to it to ensure that these products are well utilized within the business.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that Jürgen, that we shouldn't forget about, in terms of, the fact that your comment was business value ROI, and that's what I refer to as commercial feasibility. Okay, but there's this value that we get out of doing data management better. And I call that almost your implementation skills and feasibility. So if I know that I can deliver with my people, I can deliver any data product at any complexity, there's an intrinsic value that you get out of the people within your practice, within your data office. Okay, so there's actually two things. There's something called data ROI, and there's something called the data office ROI. And your data office ROI is about how technically competent and capable you are of delivering any data product that is going to create data ROI. So Jürgen, can you see there's two aspects to that equation? One is the value that business get directly from the product, and the other one is that business gets from your competency on delivering products successfully.
Yeah, nice one, Howard. I think the one will also be driven by SLAs type thing.
Oh yes. So, and it's also project initiatives, right? So there's an SLA of ongoing service, and you're right, and that's typically at the data practice level. How good is my data quality, looking after it? And then you've got a project sort of deliverable, which is your data team do they deliver data team ROI, or those data initiative ROIs in terms of good, proper data management? So you want to measure that to ensure, for example, what's the value of going from a maturity level 2 to a maturity level 3 or to a maturity level 4? If I'm optimizing, I'm getting efficiencies. So that means I'm getting better cost reduction. Jürgen, can you see how you need to bring both together? And that needs to be part of your value strategy. How am I delivering value to the organization?
100%. Thanks, Howard. Makes perfect sense.
Okay, great. Excellent. So these are the things, these are the journeys that we go on. And you can basically see the steps of delivering a data product. It goes from a use case initiative to a set of data elements that are required in the use case, to data sets, fixing the data sets, building a data asset catalog, and then creating a data product out of it. So here's the movement from use case to data product. And this is almost the transformation that we are going through. Okay. So I've developed this thing now for a team lead, and here you can see them handling complex data challenges. So they're not so much about defining data practices and resourcing a data quality practice. They're about delivering data products. Okay, there's their goal. They have to deliver data products successfully. Okay, and deliver the appropriate value. Okay, so there's my value proposition for a team lead. And this is almost internal resource justification, what I refer to as a data talent strategy. Okay, so lots of stuff to work through for you. When you finally get the deck, you can look at it to say, well, am I measuring my levels appropriately? There's the data office ROI, Jürgen, that I'm referring to. Okay, and remember that the data office ROI is actually a portfolio of all of the practices that they sponsor and the teams that they work on. Okay, I wanted to do. Sorry, I missed something. I jumped out of my slide deck too quickly. So just the last bit, which is call to action for data managers. What do you need to take home from this thing? Of all of these discussions, what do you need to understand? First of all, your focus is on resource management and getting people to be more efficient, more effective. And that's both technology platforms and data professionals. You got to provide operational leadership by data initiative, by data practice. You have to provide data management advice in terms of coaching and mentoring and dealing with those complex data challenges. So as an example, it's the challenges that you have about implementing Data Vault or doing certain customer lifetime value calculations or analytics. Who's going to be the person that provides that advice? It could be the thought leader, it can be manager, and then ensure that you have good value deliveries. Okay, you are delivering value to the organization. And my warning to you there is, please don't engage and say that you're operational before you understand your value proposition. Because once you have to start running and delivering, you can be pulled anywhere, all over the place, and it's going to be very hard for you to say, no, that's not my responsibility. Don't ask me as a BI person to deliver data quality value. Be careful of that thing. I burnt like that for many years. I was constantly blamed as the BI developer for having bad quality data. The fact that it came from the application, that wasn't their problem. It's just, how you put a data product in front of me and I can't trust it. Simple as that. Okay, so work on ensuring you deliver value. Now, if you need some help in terms of how do you build a data talent strategy for these different areas and how do you transform your office to be value driven, please give us a ring, and happy to help and talk you through it in terms of setting it up. And then as feedback, I'd love to have questions, comments, anything. What is your feeling about it? And what did you think of the data management value proposition? So I'm pausing there. That's the end. Are there any comments, any questions? Sorry, I went over time. Yes, Jürgen.
Thanks, Howard. I think it's a timely conversation because a lot of us have been in the practice now for a while, and
Yeah.
the audience now, stakeholders are beginning to ask the same questions. So what's the value? You know,
Yeah.
we're doing all of these things, consuming this massive budget, more and more people, but I'm still not feeling the value. And so we also similarly, we're going through an exercise to demonstrate value now, and we're thinking of, we got the value proposition which you spoke to, and we have a version of it. And the next is obviously to now place ourselves, you know, on the risk register, because business understands risk. And so from a governance perspective, it's important for us to keep on pointing out to the business that, listen, we're weak in certain areas, we're strong in these areas. So we're playing an active role in shaping the organization. I think that's the key. So thanks, Howard.
Yes. And Jürgen, what I can suggest, which is helpful for you, is to almost always allocate a commercial value to any of the work that you do. Why do I think that's so important? My reasoning for that is, if I try to bring in value after I've delivered a data product, you can get all sorts of arguments about, no, that's not what we wanted, or you didn't do this. But if you start off that when your use case is defined at a data strategy level, and you have a commercial study as to what are we trying to achieve by this use case, okay, it gives you a great way of validating whether the work that you delivered according to their expectations and what the feasibility was measured on that. If you don't use these and you get 6 months, 2 years down the road, it is just about impossible to convince people that that initiative gave you this value. That one gave you this value. That one gave you this value. And when we build this portfolio of value, you're going to almost you're going to be trying to convince yourself rather than convincing them, because they're not going to buy it.
Correct. Yeah. And something else probably that just dropped in my mind now was that product owners from business.
Yeah.
So it's important to have them driving these requirements, driving the value back into the business. So, you know, having a good relationship with them and by a nice, healthy engagement model helps us to achieve indirectly as well.
Correct. So because the marketing people are the people that are typically responsible for product development and product lifecycle management, using those techniques that marketing people use is extremely helpful to apply to your team and your value that you deliver. Even the business architecture has, for every single capability, they have a value proposition. I don't know if you've seen that, Jürgen. If you go to business architecture and you look at their frameworks, there should be a value proposition per capability. Even if it's data management, data quality, whatever it is, there should be a value proposition. Are you aware of that value proposition? And are you measuring yourself according to that value proposition?
Correct. Yeah, no, we definitely look at that. There's also, they define a value chain as well. So they're linking a whole bunch of businesses into a value.
The big question is, do you get the financial people to agree on the way in which you're measuring, and that you can claim a level of data value, rands and cents, economic expressions? It's one thing to say, yes, I've got it, but can you convert that to an economic definition? And I'm not saying that everybody can do it, and I'm not saying that it's easy, but the discussion changes dramatically when you try to quantify that in rands and cents. It's a radical change, and the arguments are completely different when you change it to an economic expression of value rather than just, oh, that was very valuable, thanks, guys.
Yeah, 100%, Howard. I mean, in the business cases, we state the tangible and intangible derivations. So yeah, if we can now bring that thinking back into the data product space, I think that's a win for us. Yeah.
Now you brought a very important point there about intangible assets. That is something that the whole world and GARP and those people are starting to say, that when you define the value of a data product, it goes into your intangible assets unless it's generating revenue. Okay, then it's a tangible asset, and people are paying for it, and you don't need to look at the intangible accounting for it. Now, the interesting thing, Jürgen, was that Dr. Don Steenkamp, you know him. You may know him. He was from the Reserve Bank. He was part of economic research. He published a paper the other day to say that the value of intangible assets in South Africa has not grown like it has in America and the UK and Europe. They actually had almost 200 to 300% growth rates of intangible assets in the accounting world and on the stock market. It's actually gone backwards. There's been a reduction of intangible assets. So if you infer something on that, is to say, well, are we really quantifying our data products? The answer has to be, well, it's not visible and it's not being accounted for.
I agree with you, Howard.
Thank you, Jürgen. Thank you for your engagement. It's 20 past. Are there any other questions?
No, thanks, Howard. It's been probably just in the back of what Jürgen said, that culture change, just bringing all the minds together to understand that this is the core of the delivery, is to understand the value first, because it is a challenge, that, right? You're saying to us, or the managers out there, dig your heels in, basically. Don't move until these things are in place. And sometimes, just an example, like that example of buying that application. Somebody made the decision, somebody got it implemented, and then business now has to take the pain of all the errors and all this kind of stuff, and then the lack of buy-in or the lack of use of the, and as you say, then you got to backpedal to try and explain the value of what was implemented, and I mean, you weren't even in the room when it was signed off. So I think it's a massive a culture change or an educational change program to get business into the same mindset. I mean, business, and when I say that, I don't mean it, because business is about return on investment, right? That's what they're doing. They're working hard, selling products and doing that. But you've got to translate that into the data space to say there's this the same thing that you're applying there, you've got to apply here. Otherwise, anyway, just interesting. Shucks. Thanks.
Yeah, Paul, and I'm sure you remember my story of talking to the executive group on one of the banks in Saudi, and we had lots of discussions, and I made a comment to the executives to say, how many of you and I was looking at the CFO, get these business cases presented to you initially to get funding for a project, an initiative, and when you look back, are those people still being questioned on the ROI that they promised? Okay. Now, the CFO started laughing at that point in time, and she said to me, Howard, I've had enough of these business cases that are coming from IT in terms of justifying the ROI about new technology, new this, new whatever it was. And the first question she had was, I have no idea where they get the data from to prove that they are going to get that ROI. I cannot see it, and I don't know where they get it from. Now, there are data professionals, but they cannot produce data that supports their ROI claim. She was very jaundiced about that whole process that we go through of defining a business case with all the ROI. She just says she doesn't believe any of that stuff. She's seen very few that have delivered on the ROI that they promised. Now, we would want to change that. And it's having people like that say enough of this. Let's do this properly and let's measure it properly so that we can retire and get rid of a product if it's not making money and it's costing us.
Yeah. No, 100%.
Great.
No, it's yeah. Just another. I remember being on the training in the UAE, and gentleman said to me, "Shucks, you know, we pay $3 million a year for this Informatica that we have, and nobody's using it."
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I can't get a new resource signed off to employ someone to help us with some of the work that we've got. So I'm like, geez, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, and I've seen that as well. I've seen it on big telcos. They say they've got this product and it's a disaster. Now, is it the product? Is it the people? Is it the initiative? Is it the way in which it was set up? All sorts of things we just don't know. But a lot of the time we have so many of those failures around.
Yeah. No, cool. Thank
Jürgen,
you.
I saw your hand go up.
Yeah, I wanted to probably just add to that was data literacy is a key component in educating the organization.
Yeah.
Then managers need to be able to tell the data story, right? If you can't tell the data story, then it doesn't go any further than yourself and your team.
Yeah.
So that's kind of two key areas.
I'd like to also challenge you, Jürgen, is that data managers need business literacy and financial literacy. And then once you've demonstrated that you have business literacy and financial literacy, they will be more happy about learning your data literacy.
Yeah. So, you know, Howard, you mentioned that, right? About knowing. It is so powerful if a data manager goes to a business owner and says, guys, I've looked at your process, I understand it. Let me do these two things for you, and you will improve. We most of the time are reactive, waiting for business to tell us. When if we understand their business, we can actually go to them. I think that's the advantage.
Nice.
100%. Yeah. What do they say? Seek first to understand before wanting to be understood.
Awesome, Howard. Thanks.
Thanks. Sorry, everybody. I know there's lots of talking, and any other questions from anybody? Thanks, Connie. If you'd like to reach out to us, please. I got my email address, and if you want to contact me on LinkedIn or on WhatsApp, there's also my cell phone number. So if you'd like to chat, give us a chat, and I'd love to hear from you in terms of what do you feel the responsibilities of the data management and the team leads, and how do you demonstrate value? Happy to talk that through with you. But other than that, I'd just like to say thank you all for attending. Thanks for the engagement. Paul, Jürgen, thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Howard.
And even Debbie, that was a good question. I don't think I need to actually spend some time thinking about how do I define a data owner in that regard, just to clarify the technique that they need to deliver. Excellent.
Great.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Good night.
Thank you. Cheers.
Great. Thank you again. Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye, everyone.